The 2012 Tour de France, starting here in the Belgian city of Liege, was the 99th edition of the race. Now, the previous 98 had produced winners from a dozen different nations, led by the hosts with 36 wins, ahead of Belgium on 18, Spain 12, America 10, Italy 9, Luxembourg 5, the Dutch and the Swiss with 2 wins apiece, then Ireland, Denmark, Germany and Australia, all with a single national victory to their credit. No British rider had ever set foot on the podium in Paris, let alone the top step. Yet coming into this year's race, a Brit was the biggest favourite for nearly a decade.
I think I've got that belief now, that confidence. I think I finished third in a really tough Vuelta 6 weeks after breaking my collarbone in the Tour de France. So I think I've improved as a rider this year. My time trial has improved, my climbing's improved, and I've not only as an individual improved, but I think I've now got the team around me to support me in the mountains, and I think we showed that in the Dauphiné. So everything's in place. Just there's still a couple of real contenders though. Frank Schleck's back on form, and obviously there's the gutsy Cadel Evans who never gives up, and he's going to be a tough man to beat, and he's the reigning champion, and he's not going to let that title go easy. So we're going to have a tough job on our hands, but that's sport, that's why we do it, that's the challenge, and we were certainly in a good position to try and do that.
At first glance, the Tour route looks set up for Wiggins, 101 kilometres of time trialling and 1 fewer mountaintop finish than last year, which is to say 3. A closer look, though, revealed a route full of steep and unfamiliar territory that offered the climbers plenty of chances to attack. But not in Liège. The Tour kicked off in Belgium with a 6.4 kilometre prologue. Amongst the last to start, Wiggins was cautious through the early turns and 6 seconds off the pace at the halfway mark, but then he started to wind it up.
Surely he is going to go inside the time here of Sylvain Chavanel. He is coming up here faster than the train of Grand Vitesse down in the station. Wiggins hits the line now. He is in first place, 52.3 kilometres an hour. And look at that, Paul, by just about half a second quicker than Chavanel. The Olympic champion, he will go to London to defend that championship, and he dreams of winning it again. 4 times the world time trial champion. 4 times he has won the first day, the time trial in the Tour de France. Is it going to be 5? His whole career started right here in Liège in 2004.
This man had a tough start to the season. He came out perfectly in the early part of the year, winning the Strade Bianche in Italy, then the 7th stage of the Tiro Adriatico. He thought he was going to be the winner of the Tour of Flanders, then all of a sudden Lady Luck threw him to the ground and broke his collarbone into 4 places.
Cadel Evans, who last year became the first Australian to win the Tour de France, he returned home to a huge crowd in Federation Square. He couldn't believe it. He broke down when he arrived back home. The Aussies are back in force with a record entry in the Tour this year with 12 riders. But this is the man, and over these last few weeks, I think we agree, he's ready. Enormous cheers for Cadel Evans. He's very, very popular. The last man of 198 goes out of the start ramp, Paul. Cadel Evans has said he thinks he's ready. He knows what Wiggins has done, and I would think he can match it.
That is a big advantage, and look at the high cadence that he's pedaling at. We saw Tony Martin, the world champion in this discipline, a little earlier on, using massive gears and a slow cadence. Cadel Evans has opted for a Lance Armstrong type cadence here, around about 100 revolutions a minute. His legs are going round there, keeping his pace right up there to that 31 mile an hour average speed. He knows he needs to hold if he wants to rival Bradley Wiggins and possibly get himself into the top 3 or 4 of today's individual prologue time trial.
Vincenzo Nibali, he equally would like a place in the top 15 men by the finish.
Nibali was 8th at the first time check there, losing 4 seconds. That is probably the best time trial performance he's done all year. This is impressive as he comes into the finish line. He won't be too far off. Much better time trialing that he put in the Amgen Tour of California early on in the season.
This has been his aim all year, a ride in the Tour de France. He knows he can lose the Tour de France in the time trials. He has to stay close to the top names as we go to the mountains in a week's time. And Nibali comes home. It is a great ride. 12th place at the moment for him. He probably slipped just a couple of places more before the finish. He'll be pleased with that. Well, there's the huge crowd down on the quays on the banks of the River Meuse. As we look down from the helicopter, nobody is rocking the boat at the moment on the arrival point at 3.2 kilometres on the Quai de la Goffe. as Cadel Evans has made the turn. We saw him from the helicopter, accelerates away as he sees the whole flotilla of cars following the defending champion of the Tour de France. This man wants to do what he did in 2004. Fabian Cancellara is on a ride. Best time at halfway, 3 minutes 34.
Well, that's a new best time for Fabian Cancellara by a single second ahead of Sylvain Chavanel, 3:34. He will have that information communicated to him in his helmet by the team manager behind. He wants to win. The man to beat this afternoon is Bradley Wiggins. He has the fastest time on the finishing line at 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Cadel Evans' timer should pop through very, very shortly as he gets himself concentrated. He knows 1 minute ahead of him on the road is Fabian Cancellara. 10th best time at the first time check for Cadel Evans. Not too bad. He's lost himself 6 seconds. That's around about the same time as Bradley Wiggins at this point. What can this man do? His nickname in the sport is Spartacus. He speaks a very strange kind of broken English, which a lot of his fans called Fabianese.
Paul, he can't lose, I don't think. You shouldn't say that, should you really? But as I say, his career started here in Liège. We're watching the finish at the moment of Thomas Voigtli. He won't live with the speed of the big man we call Spartacus. Well, look at that. Inside 7 minutes as our cameras pick him up in the straight. It's going to be tight, but I think he'll get a shave it by maybe a second here. As he comes up towards the line, he knows what he's got to do. Cancellara, is it's going to be his 5th opening day in the Tour de France? It looks like it. Best time, 7:13.46. Fabian Fabulous Cancellara.
Well, he smashed it. That was the biggest beating that anybody has shaved off the leaders. Look at his face. He looked, you just saw his eyes there, Phil, just looking up. 7 seconds in a race as short as this is a crushing of the opposition.
Well, Cancellara will, for the 5th time, walk off with a yellow jersey for tomorrow's opening day of the Tour de France on the roads. Cadel Evans, though, is pushing a great time here. He is quicker than Bradley Wiggins, who has just slipped into 2nd place behind Cancellara. And if he finishes in the top 3, then we know it, Paul. Cadel Evans is ready.
He is ready. I think he was playing a little bit of possum when he rode the Critérium du Dauphiné, but he raced. He kept pushing Bradley Wiggins every day. The time to beat is 7:13. I can't believe that he's going to do that, but what's he going to do vis-a-vis his position relative to Bradley Wiggins? The big two names.
That is all that matters, his time against the favourites. Cancellara will not be winning the Tour de France only today, but what a way to do that. As Evans rides up towards the finish now, the time of Wiggins has slipped by at 7:20. Evans has lost about 10 or 15 seconds here to Bradley Wiggins. Hits the line in 13th place, so he concedes on the Bradley Wiggins there just about 9 seconds.
Yeah, but Phil, if you finish in the top 15 of the prologue of a race like the Tour de France, the indication is the form is there. You can't ride a good ride like this unless the engine is ready.
It was a good start. In the end, only Fabian Cancellara could better Wiggins' time. He'd finished first of all the overall contenders, 6 clear of the Russian Denis Menchov and 10 up on the defending champion Cadel Evans of Australia.
Felt fantastic out there. Didn't take any major risks. There was a lot of kind of tricky sections, so I just concentrating on physically, everything we've been training for, really. So yeah, it's just good to get out of the way.